So we have some breaking news that Bernie Sanders has opened up a big lead in a brand new Super Tuesday poll by Morning Consult. Let's get into the numbers and then we'll talk significance afterwards. So Bernie Sanders is at 27%. That's 7 ahead of Joe Biden. Michael Bloomberg is at 16, Elizabeth Warren at 11, and Pete Buttigieg at 10. And of course, movement matters. Bernie's up a couple here, not a big movement there, but Joe Biden is down 7. Michael Bloomberg is +2, Warren -3, and Pete Buttigieg has doubled his support, but only doubled it to 10%, proving that Pete Buttigieg, despite getting some momentum from his quote-unquote win in Iowa, has no real basis of support behind small, uniformly white states. This poll is extremely important. I can't overstate that. This poll in some ways is more important than national polls because Super Tuesday is really a decision day in the primary process. Tonight is the New Hampshire primary. Very important. I'm looking forward to see Bernie Sanders win it. And of course, we also have the Nevada caucuses and the South Carolina primary coming up soon. But in less than a month, Super Tuesday is going to happen, and no other day in the primary calendar has more delegates at stake and more states in play. It is the sort of day that can often end a primary process, if not formally, then in the sense that somebody is going to start running away with it. And it will almost certainly eliminate all but 1 or 2 candidates, because if you don't have the resources, the money, the volunteers, the organization to win in individual states running one at a time, you're going to really struggle to compete in Super Tuesday, where states big and small all over the country are at play. It really is the first test of a candidate's ability to run a national campaign, because that's in effect what it is. And this shows that Bernie Sanders is clearly the front runner in that regard. And this poll has a lot of respondents. This isn't a small little poll. This gives us a lot of data to work off. And this poll also shows that Bernie Sanders does lead in their national results. So he leads in their Super Tuesday and national results. But his Super Tuesday results are stronger. And don't underestimate the ability of a strong Super Tuesday to be like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger and faster, because that's often what happens. And if you look at this data, it shows Bernie Sanders moving up largely off Joe Biden's collapse. But unlike in some other polls, Biden's support isn't uniformly moving to Bloomberg. It's actually being split through many different people, because while he's down 7, Buttigieg is up 5, but no person is absorbing all of those losses from Joe Biden at this stage. And if you look further at the polls, only Bernie and Biden are clearly above that 15% threshold, and Biden is moving down fast. Michael Bloomberg is at 16, but that's within the margin of error of that 15% threshold. And I've said it before on the channel, but 15% is more or less where you need to be to reach viability in terms of delegate allocation in the proportional systems. And if you're consistently below 15%, you'll find yourselves in many states, or at least in many parts of states, not getting a single delegate for all the votes you earn. So that has to be a major concern for Warren and Buttigieg at this stage, and also a concern for Bloomberg and maybe even Biden if he continues to move in the wrong direction. And another important piece of data in this poll is second choice support. And this is yet another piece of good news for Bernie Sanders. Among the top candidates here, only 2 of them are moving downward: Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden. Again, Biden down 7, Warren down 3. But among Warren supporters and Biden supporters, Bernie Sanders is their second choice, showing that if and when those candidates start to falter further, it's not necessarily the case that Biden's supporters will all move in a neoliberal direction. Right now, according to Morning Consult, Bernie Sanders would get a plurality of Joe Biden's supporters if they all picked their second choice, and he would get a significant plurality of Elizabeth Warren's supporters if they picked their second choice, showing that among some of the top candidates who are moving in a downward direction, Bernie Sanders has growth potential to peel off their voters as they look for other options later on in the process in places like Super Tuesday and, of course, more nationally. Finally, one important thing to look at here is favorability, and Bernie Sanders has the best results of the field. When you add up favorability and you subtract a lack of favorability, Bernie Sanders does extremely well. And while you might just say, well, isn't that just a glorified popularity contest? True to some extent, it is an indication of where Democratic primary voters would tolerate going. And if Bernie Sanders has very high favorables and low unfavorables, it means that people will move to him when their first choice candidate drops out or starts to look unviable or both or for whatever other reason. Bernie Sanders in this poll is not only showing that he's strong, is not only showing that he's in the lead, is not only showing that he's winning by 7 points the single most important day in the primary schedule, but that he has growth potential given that the average Democratic primary voter really likes him, and given that supporters of both Warren and Biden see Bernie as their second choice. Another great piece of news for Bernie Sanders. He has to keep pushing. He has to keep winning those delegates. Again, it has to be said that in these primary processes, Bernie Sanders is now the front runner for the nomination. But what's going to matter is if Bernie Sanders can win an outright majority of delegates at the convention, or if he can't, can he get very, very close to that threshold? Because you don't want to give the superdelegates and you don't want to give an alliance of neoliberals the opportunity, the ability, the hope of stealing the nomination from Bernie Sanders at the convention. That's why it's absolutely essential Bernie Sanders win every delegate he can in New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, on Super Tuesday, and in every state and other primary after that fact. The prize is there to be seized. We just got to keep working hard to make it happen.